Hi there, David Kamens with another episode of Mic Drop. Today's guest is quite the broadcaster who then shifted gears and become something really special at a university and helping students and maybe people like yourself that are emerging into this great world of broadcasting. I am I'm so pleased to over the years have worked with a lot of on-camera talent. I'm a producer who's created 19 original series. This guy got me going. On my second job, he was that solid go-to broadcaster who made things quite a bit easier and a whole lot of fun. This episode of Mic Drop is coming right at you. So darn pleased to be joined by this particular gentleman right here with the great smile, Neil Hartman. We go back just about, I don't know, 3 centuries or so. I don't know, buddy, but I really want to, I think our audience is into being an emerging broadcaster or changing lanes in this great field. Um, Maybe there, who knows, there could be marketing folks out there that know that being on camera is important and special in this world. And Neil, you've done a lot. First of all, catch us up on where you are today, what you do, and then I'll tell the good folks how we once knew one another so well.
Yeah, so I was a sports broadcaster for 35 years, so long time. And 8 years ago, actually, it's almost 9 years ago now, I got involved in higher education. So I first worked at Temple University for a couple of years, and the last almost 6.5 years now, I've been at Rowan University, which is a state institution in New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia. We're 25 minutes right from my office here to the sports complex in Philadelphia. And so now my job is mentoring students, guest speakers. There's a lot of partnerships that I'm involved in, scholarships, really anything to help advance the students' experience here at Rowan University. We're a large school. We have 23,000 students. We have 450 students, actually more than that, in our sports communication media program. So we're not small, we're big. Really enjoy this experience of having an impact on students' lives. I mean, I feel very fortunate, Dave, to have a second career, a long career doing one thing, and I don't know, I might even enjoy this one more than that one, which is bizarre. I've really enjoyed this part of my life.
Let's start with your start, meaning I believe you came out of radio when we worked together for the first time. It may have been your first TV job, if I'm
No,
not mistaken.
no, no,
No?
no, no.
Okay.
So here's my background. I had a high school radio station in
Hmm.
Westport, Connecticut. It was one of only 100 in the country at the time. So long time ago. And that's where I got the bug when I was, again, 14. And then I worked for my local radio station in Westport, Connecticut. And then I went on to Ithaca College to pursue television and was able to do a lot of things at Ithaca College. Among them, worked for ABC Sports at the Winter Olympics. I was right next to Al Michaels when he said, "Do you believe in miracles?" How about that? That was pretty special. And then interned at ESPN in 1981. ESPN started in the fall of 79. I was one of their first interns ever and was there for 9 months during that period of time. And then my first job out of school was at the ABC affiliate in Springfield, Massachusetts. I was there for 2.5 years. Then I went to Toledo, Ohio at the NBC affiliate for 3 years. And that's when I met you at WPHL TV in Philadelphia. And I came here in 1989. So in 1989 is when I started working at PHL. And that's when I bumped into that man right there, Dave Cates.
Well, I appreciate you. And that was a good run. We were both a little nascent, right? Couple few stations behind us, but what I loved is you came in with a great spirit, a great attitude, and verve for the game of basketball, NBA basketball, which was important, right? What do you give me a couple of things that you wish you knew then that you went on to learn in your career broadcasting that people might want to like turn their heads and go, oh wow, I hadn't thought of that.
Well, I think you first of all, mature over time and you have a lot of different experiences that you can fall back on and say, I don't think I'm going to do it that way the next time. So that I think is valuable. And I tell our students here at Rowan all the time that there's There's nothing better than reps, no matter what you're doing. If you're on air, it's reps, reps, reps. If you're doing social media, it's reps, reps, reps. If you're in PR, it's having the different events and experiences that you have there. So, fortunately, I think I came to Philadelphia at a really good time where I felt like I had this knowledge that I was able to obtain for the first two jobs that I had professionally. And then when I got there to be able to work and cover the Philadelphia 76ers, I was the studio host for the Philadelphia 76ers. That was the original job. And then it expanded. We had the Phillies at one time, we had the Flyers. So there, it was kind of an independent TV station that had all the sports programming. And I was the guy that was there. So I was able to do a lot of things. And look, how can you not be excited? At that time, I was in my late 20s to coming to a major market, covering a professional team and frankly, an iconic franchise. I mean, the Sixers have been around for a long period of time. They have a lot of history to them. So I was really excited about the job. And we were in PHL 17 was located in an old supermarket building in Winfield section of Philadelphia. It wasn't the most glamorous location in the world or the building itself, but I was excited to be there. So for me, I think you have to appreciate what you have at the time and make the most of it.
Dig it. One of the learnings I had there, I don't know if you have anything to say about this, but I had come from a non-union shop. And then this PHL was a union shop. And just very interesting the way you couldn't be hands-on, right? I couldn't touch a tape. I couldn't put a tape into a machine at the time. Of course, people like our intern RJ would go, "What's a tape?" But um, I found that to be a different and very big time learning experience. To like, okay, I've got now there's different rules, right? And how many shops you then went on to Comcast Sportsnet, now NBC Sports Philly, where the you could do a lot more, and then but then you had more management, different situations. You really had to adapt over time. I think there's a lot to be learned from that too.
So the first time I ever edited a highlight for the Sixers, again, this is 1989. This is going to blow away, well, RJ for sure, you're intern, but for any younger person that's watching this podcast, uh, I edited with a technician on 1 inch reel to reel. I can't explain it really. It's these two massive machines with these reels, and I'm telling them, okay, I want this clip, this highlight. This is what I'm doing in the first half while watching the game and then taking the highlights. Nowadays, it's simple. Everybody knows you can on these things you can edit, whatever. So, but back then it was a big ordeal. So I think you learn something from that. Like I learned as a broadcaster, and most of my career I was in the studio. I've done my share of play-by-play and did reporting, field reporting, all that stuff. But most of my career I was in the studio. I learned at Ithaca College without a teleprompter. So sometimes I feel like people today, they're just, oh my, what's on that prompter? What do I have to say? If you're in the studio. If you're doing a post-game show, a pre-game show, pre-game is still scripted, post-game shows are not. So you have to be able to address the camera, talk about what's happened in the first half or what's happened in the game, and you have to be able to think on your feet about what you want to say and things like that. So I'm just really grateful that I was able to go through that stage of when broadcasting was a lot different than it is today.
Mm.
And I think then you adapt and adjust as you go along in your lifetime. In our lifetime, Dave, we've seen a lot of changes in this business. I remember I'm at PHL 17 doing Sixers, and I guess it's like 1990, I'm going to say. And there was a move with the Sixers, and I needed I needed some paper, or I needed the release or something. And I remember calling the PR person, I think it was Zach Hill at the Sixers at the time. And I go, Zach, I'll come by and I'll go pick it up. He goes, no, Neil, I can fax it to you. Fax it. Like, think about that. Think about that. Like, it's unbelievable how technology has changed so dramatically. But I distinctly remember saying, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive 20 minutes to the Spectrum, I'm going to pick up this press release, and I'm going to go back and then I'm going to put it together. And that's how we're going to deliver the information. But Zach goes, Neil, I'll fax it to you. So at that time, fax was like, oh, whoa, I can get a fax. So that's where we are today. Now we got these things, and you can do anything on these things. It's crazy what's happened.
What about we I was your producer for this pre and post game show half times. What about working with different producers and then self-producing? Can you get into that as a talent, having to work with different writers, adapting your style to theirs, working with someone who said, this is what the show is going to be like. And I always wanted your input. Hey, what do you think we want to do today? I've got this feature, but how are we going to get from here to there? I love, the interchange of working with talent, but maybe you at times had producers that like, here's the deal, here's what we're doing, you know. Um, Talk about that role with producers and self-producing.
So it goes back again to my how did I learn how to produce? So in college, I did a lot of producing, but I was also the talent. When I worked in Springfield, Massachusetts, I'm producing my little 7 minute sportscast. It was 7 minutes on the weekends at that time. Nowadays, you're lucky if you get two. But I produced that. So I had this producing knowledge, but also interest in doing that. It just so happens that I also wanted to be the talent and be on the air. So I think that helps me understand your job about what you have to do as a producer. So I never really have any major problems with producers, and I've worked with a lot of them, particularly when I was at NBC Sports Philly, which is now what was called Comcast Sportsnet when I was there. We started in 1997. I was there till 2016. For 19 years, I worked with a lot of different producers and a lot of different shows. Now, you have your favorites for sure, and you align with them. But as far as the writing is concerned, yes, on a show, when we were doing an hour-long show, which we would do, the producer is going to write their share. The associate producers are going to write. So you have to get used to everybody's writing styles. And yes, we all have a different style. I classify myself, I'm kind of a meat and potatoes guy. I'm not this cutesy, write this little cute line and hey, that fits for some guys' personality. Me, I'd rather just ad lib it and just what I see, I'm going to react. And that's how I went about my job as an anchor. But again, it's different for every talent, and you have to adjust to different people. But I think that background of knowing how to produce and what the role is of producer, I think help me kind of adapt to the different people.
You mentioned Rowan University, where you do this program called Pizza with the Pros, where you bring in notable people behind and in front of the camera and basically open up the floor to your students to ask them questions. I'm interested, what what are some of the things that, okay, I'm sure you found a consistency, right? Things that everybody says that helps those students along the way. What are some of the outliers? What are some of the surprises of what you've learned from people that have worked all over the industry that you went, I'm gonna keep that one. That's one that's really unique. Give me a couple of those.
Yeah, I mean, we've done Pizza for the Pros. My only guest that I've ever repeated is the broadcaster for the Phillies and CBS Sports, Tom McCarthy. He came in, I guess, like 2019 when I was started
Hmm.
out, and then I just had him this past September when we had 190 students that were there. 190 students, not a class. They just show up, and that's the draw. The auditorium seats 130, seats 130.
Yeah.
They were everywhere. But we normally get about, I'd say 70 or so. 70 to 120 is our kind of that's our target to what we normally get from students attending. But all different types of people from on-air sports executives, former athletes, PR, marketing, social media, community relations. I mean, you run the gamut, and we try to, and writers, we try to bring all different types in each and every week. And the number one thing they all say is always say yes. That's something they tell our students, always say yes. The ones that kind of there was a guy named Jake Rosenberg who was Howie Roseman's number two guy with the Philadelphia Eagles for 12 years. And Jake now runs his own business, the Athlete Group, where he actually consults Power Four conferences in football primarily,
Mhm.
for taking the NFL model and bringing it to the college scene. So, like one of his big clients is Oklahoma, for example. He's actually doing the Oklahoma AD search right now. So Jake started out in like working Wall Street, and like he was a numbers guy. So I think sometimes students just think you've got to go this way. Like there's no direct path how you can go and obtain your dream job. And I think Jake was just a really smart guy, had a chance to then get connected with the Eagles, and then was in the job doing a really good job. But I think he also saw Harry Roseman's not going anywhere. So you're not going to become the GM. I think he did apply. I know he applied to some jobs to try to become a GM. But I think the point I'm making about Jake is that he had this expertise in this one field, and then he was able to adapt and translate all that knowledge to another field, and it happened to be the NFL. And he did a great job. And he's now pivoted again, and now doing this work with different schools all over the country to help them prepare for NIL and what's going on in college athletics. So that one kind of stands out the way he did. There's plenty of people that come with um, like I didn't know what I was going to do when I graduated from college,
Mhm.
and then they just find their footing. And I think that's something that all our students are petrified when they graduate in May, and they go like, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do for a job?" Now there's we got a decent number that know what they're going to do when they leave in May, but there's a lot that don't, and that's a dangerous, scary scenario. And I think what a lot of guests have told our students: relax, prepare yourself, build that resume, develop those contacts, and then it will all kind of work out. But it's the unknown that's really hard for students and frankly for everybody. If you don't know like what's my job going to be like in a year from now, I mean it's nerving. It's unnerving. So I think
Mhm.
that's something that they have all had to adjust. And our guests they're terrific. They're fabulous. They're just really good people.
That pivot, that pivot you mentioned that Josh did, it's really bubbling to the surface these days where numbers people have become so valuable in sports, right? It's fascinating, right? Analytics. It's like we didn't hear of analytics 10, 12 years ago. So really good stuff. That's a great story. I think for him to have that type of Wall Street expertise, and he's front office, and now he's helping Big Four conferences is that's something to enlighten anybody. It's really
I have a student, Dave. He was valedictorian of his high school. He was a math major, but a huge sports fan. And when he was here on campus his freshman year, he heard about our sports communication media program, and he goes, "Well, I love sports. I love math. Can I do something in analytics and marry the two?" So I'm really happy. His name's Jackson, and Jackson now is just started on Saturday his third year, and now has become the chief statistics stat person for the Delaware Bluecoats, which is the Philadelphia 76ers G League affiliate. So he's center court. He's the main stat guy. He's a senior in college. And you're trained by the NBA because that's a big job. You can't screw up the stats. You got to get it right. And then he's now like one, just like in the G League, they're one phone call away from playing in the NBA, and a lot of guys get that call. He's now one call away. The Sixers stat crew, Dave, the same stat crew that you and I dealt with way
Mhm.
back is virtually the same, if not there might be one or two that were the son of the dad that did that job, and now it's the son that's doing that job for like 20, 30 years. It's nuts. So, but he is one phone call away because he's ready. He can do a job with the Sixers if there's a need for him to do that role. So, but he wants to go into analytics. He's now going down the it's not accounting, but like the financial world. I don't know that world. I mean, I have no idea. But he's doing down that path. And
Mhm.
then his thought was, and he just told me this a few weeks ago, he wants to get a nice stable job and then he's going to hopefully go into the sports field and preferably in analytics in some kind of role utilizing his math background. So I love that vision. And again, that's someone who's kind of thinking down the road, how can I take advantage of what I've already learned?
And what you love, and
Yeah,
do
what you
what you
love.
love.
Yeah, for sure.
You have a special relationship with a gentleman that used to wear number 34 for the Sixers. Talk to me about Charles Barkley, the person versus the broadcaster, because what I'm after here is he's renowned as being, one of the most watchable people ever. And you know him as a guy and a broadcaster. And there's a cool parallel there, isn't there?
There is. I'm drawing here. So he just came for his second visit to Rowan University. I'm very appreciative, Charles. The relationship goes back to the days when we were covering the Sixers. So from 1989 until now, he's developed into becoming a really good friend. When he came to Rowan, there were 800 people there. He's Charles. I mean, he was fabulous, just fabulous. He takes questions from the audience, and only Charles can answer these questions. We had a couple of surprises. There was a guy named Alan Lumpkin. You remember Lumpy?
Yeah. Hmm.
Alan Lumpkin was just so most people don't know who he is, but he was with the Sixers organization more than 40 years. And he started as an intern and he went all the way to the head of basketball administration. So basically, the travel, anything kind of non-coaching related or player personnel related, he handled. And he has just recently retired, and he came to the talk. And there was a famous clip Charles said on Inside the NBA where he said that back in the days when we were covering him on back-to-back games, and by the way, they did not charter back in those days. That he would take his uniform into the shower to clean it. Have you heard that? Have you seen that clip?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. It's a famous clip. Shaq and Kenny Smith are going berserk. Like, Charles, wait a minute. There's no way you took your uniform, went into the shower, and would clean it. He's looking at me. Yeah, that's what we did. I go, Al Lumpkin, you were there. You were in the locker room. Is this a true story? Yes. He said they actually did that. I could not believe, there's no way. So anyway, it's a true story. Here's the thing about Charles. What you see on the air is Charles. He is such a generous individual. He's a people person first and foremost. He can go into any location. Usually it's a bar, and he will get to know as many people as possible. And he might give his cell phone out to 3, 4 people by the end of the night. I'm like, Charles, what are you doing? But that's who he is. We got to know each other really well through golf. Obviously, the initial relationship of just being around the Sixers each and every day, covering them during the years when he was really good and the Sixers were good. They actually, the first year I was there, 89, 90, they won the Atlantic Division. And if there wasn't this guy by the name of Michael Jordan, they might have gone even further in the playoffs, but they always had to get to that MJ guy, and he was pretty good. So I just really proud of the way we've been able to maintain the relationship over the years, and we see each other a lot in the summer, play a lot of golf together, and he's just a great guy.
He to that point of being who he is on the air, I think that says a lot to anybody. Whatever you bring to the game, sure, you want to be maybe a little more professional. He puts on a suit and he doesn't put on a suit anywhere, right? So that's a change that you'll see on ESPN these days or used to be on TNT. But isn't it great to like know that the guy you're watching is the person who he is off camera. And I think that's, as I say, same about you. You couldn't be more affable. And on the air, your smile is legitimate, and or was, I guess. I gather you pass that along to your students as well.
I think you have to be yourself. So I tell students all the time, again, I told you I'm a meat and potatoes guy, but there were guys like that I worked in Philadelphia. There's a guy now, Danny Baumels, who has this style of delivering. these nice lines to whatever the highlight is. Like I could never do that. Ron Burke, another colleague of mine back in the day, did the same thing. That's their style. My style was a little more straightforward, and then I would interject with my ad libs and hopefully make it entertaining. But you have to be yourself. You cannot, and for broadcasters go, oh, I want to be like Gus Johnson, right? I want to call a game like Gus Johnson or Kevin Harlan. Well, those guys are extremely unique the way they go about calling a game. I don't know if you saw the end of that Penn State game against Indiana, but Gus Johnson lost his voice when the
He
Indiana
did.
receiver. It was like he like lost it. It was the greatest. Like it was entertaining for sure, but like bring that passion and that enthusiasm that you have watching a game to the audience because they're going crazy. You have to match their energy and the energy that's on the field. So I've been very blessed to have one a gift of gab, one to be able to bring this passion and this energy. I've always been a high energy guy, and it's just me. Now, some guys are going to be a little more subdued. So when I work with students and I go, like we do auditions for the Wilmington Blue Rocks, which is the Washington Nationals high single A affiliate for our broadcasters, and then we do the Delaware Blue Coats as well. So in the room, sometimes I'll go to a guy. I need you to bring up that energy a little bit. You got to make it exciting. It's entertainment. People are watching this to be entertained. Or very rare occasions, I have to bring someone down a little bit because there's like up here, first quarter, and there's a dunk. And it's like, dude, like it's 10-8. Like, it's okay. I mean, you can get excited, but like you can't be here. You gotta be like here. So these are things that you bring to, but again, I just love the passion and the excitement that they bring to the table.
The value of radio and podcasting and these audio only, sometimes audio only formats. Speak to that. Speak to the need to paint a picture and what radio does for you.
Well, podcasts are something that we didn't have. Like radio is on the way down, except for sports talk radio. It's still got an audience out there, and obviously sports and both television and radio is still does like I love listening to a baseball game on the radio. I mean, I've been on the beach and you hear people listening to it. Now they might not be listening on a radio, they might listen on an app, but still, it's the same concept. Podcasts are something that you're just picking and choosing when you want to watch whatever you want to watch. It's just like your DVR at home or whatever, your it's appointment viewing. Or it's you watch whenever you want to watch. I think podcast. It's look, it's you're delivering what people want to see, and they're choosing to see your podcast over another one because of the subject matter or because they like you. And so I think there's a tremendous growth in this space. How it evolves over time, I'm sure it will, but right now it's pretty popular. I mean, New Heights podcast. My wife is not a sports fan. My wife loves watching, and my daughter as well. They like watching New Heights podcast. Now, I'm not really. I mean, they're entertaining, but it's two athletes, one a former athlete, and they like watching it. Well, it's entertainment. Then you bring in the Kylie Kelsey part of it, and you bring Taylor Swift in, and I mean, they're bringing these new dynamics. But it's not going anywhere right now. And there's it. The one challenge is that students that we have lots of students doing podcasts here on campus now, lots. The challenge is how do you build your audience? The Kelseys can build it because they're the Kelseys. But how do you build it if you're someone that doesn't? And what I tell them is you got to be consistent. You got to be consistent with it, and you've got to make sure that it's hitting a subject that your audience knows when they turn on that podcast, they're going to get that whatever it is. And I think that's what the Kelseys do too. I mean, they deliver a lot of entertainment. They obviously talk sports, but they're so much further that nowadays they're bringing in like different guests all the time that have nothing to do with sports, musicians, actors, whatever, because they can and people watch. So, and that's why they got $100 million to do that podcast. It's pretty good.
You last thing, you've been so gracious with your time. Really appreciate you today. Give me a couple go-tos, couple of takeaways that you speak to your emerging broadcasters or behind the scenes or on air that you know that they need to carry with them, lessons that you've learned? What are a couple of your Neil Hartman tenets, if you don't mind?
Well, this is number one right here. It's called persistence. It's a very famous quote from Calvin Coolidge. And to me, persistence is something that you need to have. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get a rejection letter. You're in, if you're on air, likely contract not renewed. How do you bounce back? It's not so much all the highs. How do you deal with the low and then get back up? Like that's a challenge. That's persistence. That's what I think is really important for students to understand. They get dejected. Like we had auditions recently. I had to tell a lot of students, you're not being selected to be a broadcaster for the Delaware Bluecoats. And they're like, I thought I had a great audition. Like what? I thought I deserved to be there. You were great. You were in the mix, but you didn't get it. This is what it's going to be like when you leave this campus and go out in the real world. And how you adjust and how you react to those disappointments, I think is going to be a telling factor about how you're going to be able to handle yourself in this business. It's a tough business. It's a really tough business. But if you stay the course and you work hard and you make all those connections and you're doing all the right things, in all likelihood, you're going to be able to obtain your dream. And that is if you want to be an on air person or social media or marketing or PR, whatever it is, you can get there. And it's our job here at Rowan to make sure that we help you prepare for that moment and we help get you to that moment.
Persistence goes a long way in golf, my friend, too. So follow your own advice on the course. Hey, nobody has a bad word to say about this gentleman, Neil Hartman, and I think that's that you can't say that about everybody. I adore you. It was fun to catch up again, and I really appreciate your time on Mic Drop. Have yourself a great time at Rowan, and we'll be following you.
All right, Dave. Thank you so much for having me and hit it straight.